Hmm. Nancy Pelosi is fake opposition. I'm burning, bro, and let me explain away. During the George W. Bush Dick Cheney years, there was a time that I had some amount of admiration for Nancy Pelosi. After all, we were talking about an era when in the 1990s, as the Democratic Party was shifting more toward the neoliberal direction that they are currently in. And Nancy Pelosi was perceived as the hard liberal left at that time. Woo. And I thought to myself, if she can become, instead of minority leader, become Speaker of the House, maybe, just maybe, that the Democratic Party can move forward and try to put a stop to this Republican Party bullshit that was the contract on America. That time Newt Gingrich was gone. It was Dennis Haskert, I believe was his name, was the Speaker of the House. Had a charisma of a handkerchief, but still, numerically, the Republicans were in control, and it was just kind of a bad time. George W. Bush was the president. The U.S. House senators and the U.S. Senate were under Republican control, and the Supreme Court was pretty much firmly on the right wing camp. And Nancy Pelosi looked kind of like she didn't look like she was going to go and play nice with Republicans. She looked like she was going to just go ahead and oppose them. So when the Republicans were defeated in 2006, it was awesome. And I mean, it's not like I felt like the revolution finally arrived and all of that. I was like, these are just kind of tepid liberals. But she was like a tepid liberal that had a little more backbone that at that time than preceding Democratic leaders. Howard Dean, when he took over the Democratic National Committee during that time, was posturing the Democrats to be in more of a fighting mode. Too bad he ended up turning into a centrist. So for from 2007 until 2009, it was kind of nice seeing a Democratic Party that was more defiant in Congress. They weren't as defiant or as obstructionist as I wanted to be, but they showed a little more backbone than they were previously. So when Barack Obama won, and Nancy Pelosi continued to be Speaker of the House during the first 2 years of Obama, something happened where the limited fight and limited posture she has, she went into complacency to go along with the Democratic agenda. Because after all, everybody thought, well, we could dust away those protest signs, those anti-war signs, and we could just relax now because Obama's the president. Everything is fine. Just relax. Then the Tea Party happened. The Republicans took over the House in 2010. She became the minority whip, and and the Democrats pretty much went back to being the spineless pieces of shit that they were. Um, in 2018, the Democrats reclaimed the House. Um, it was the year of the squad. Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Presley, and of course, Alexandria Ocasio Cortez. And AOC was pretty much a thorn at that time to Pelosi's side. It was beautiful. It was beautiful because Nancy Pelosi stood for nothing, and AOC at the very beginning was trying to control the agenda, and seems like for a while he was. I have my criticisms of Alexandria Ocasio Cortez. I haven't totally dissed her, but I have my criticism, and she's flirting with the centrists now. Even Bernie Sanders seems to have lost the fight or lost the will to fight lately. And I'm not particularly a radical person in spite of my politics all these years, being an admitted socialist before socialism became kind of an accepted term. I was never particularly radical. I never was never really fond of any Marxist Leninist school of thinking. I don't. I think that the Frankfurt School is silly and dangerous at the same time. I'm not particularly woke. I'm not a good person per se, but I know that racism and sexism and homophobia, anti-Semitism, and all the other forms of bigotry that exist. A decent human being is not supposed to have that. It's supposed to think that way. And it's just basic human decency. I'm not a saint. I'm a furthest thing from a good person. Having that said, I'm not particularly radical. I'm, as I said, I've always been a reformist. Still, kind of embrace that reformist path. We love to see the United States kind of on par with Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Finland. Some people call it socialism, but probably the more accurate name is social democracy. I use the terms interchangeably, but if you ask me if I'm specifically a socialist or a social democrat, I'm pretty much comfortable with the term social democrat, social democracy, which is a form of socialism. Um, Having that said, the thing about it is, people like Nancy Pelosi's gotten me a little more revolutionized. And because of what happened against Bernie Sanders by the DNC, I feel a little more revolutionary these days because I'm never Biden, and the Democratic Party shown that they are incapable of being a catalyst for social change, transformative change. So when Nancy Pelosi became Speaker of the House, she engaged in this kind of she engaged in basically this posture of fake opposition to make resistance. Chuck Schumer, another sack of shit, pretty much the same thing. And so, I mean, with Donald Trump giving his State of the Union address, he was talking about all the women that got elected in 2018, which I found ironic because they all, with good reason, hate his guts. Um, and Nancy Pelosi did the little sarcastic clapping. It was virtue signaling in the goofiest way. It was just like, oh my gosh, she is just showing her defiance to Trump with this sarcastic clap. Um, During the impeachment hearing and the impeachment process, and have warned a lot of liberals to not do the impeachment thing because, one, Donald Trump gets impeached in the U.S. House, and it was exactly as I predicted. It will go to a Republican-controlled Senate, and you think that dopey Mitch McConnell is going to sit there and allow a Republican president to be removed from office? No, it everything that I predicted that would happen happened. Trump got impeached in the House. It was taken to the U.S. Senate. They acquitted him in the U.S. Senate. What happened? Donald Trump ended up looking like a victim and a hero at the same time. And people who are like fence setters on Donald Trump became sympathetic to him. Now, with this COVID crisis that's going on, we don't know. It's a foregone conclusion that Donald Trump is going to win this election. But had there not been any COVID crisis, um, the doddering old fool Joe Biden would gave his State of the Union address, and Trump shown what a sack of shit he is by giving Rush Limbaugh the Congressional Medal of Honor. And I'm sorry that Rush Limbaugh has stage 4 lung cancer, but like Kyle Kalinske said, I'm against Trump. I mean, I'm against Rush Limbaugh having lung cancer, but I'm also against Rush Limbaugh having the Presidential Honor of Freedom. Thing about it is, Nancy Pelosi sat there, tore up his speech afterwards. And the liberal left were just like, oh my, she just showed her defiance again. Not impressed. I would have been more impressed if she would have tore up that bloated military budget that the congressional Democrats voted to give Donald Trump and gave him more money than he asked for initially. And to sit there and talk about Russiagate and Russia collusion, but allow for the Patriot Act to be renewed. You don't like a president, but you're going to give him more power with the military. You're going to give him more power with the surveillance state. You're going to go and okay his judges in the courts, but sit there and talk shit about Donald Trump in public. Not impressed. That is Nancy Pelosi in a nutshell. And with this COVID crisis, we could have had a UBI. We could have had universal basic income instead of the one-time $1,200 stimulus payment. And here's the thing: even the squad, even Bernie Sanders, even Elizabeth Warren voted for that piece of shit bill. I'm not a member of Congress. I'm not a U.S. congressman. I'm not a U.S. senator, so I can't say that they willingly sold out, but they did sell out. And recently, members of Congress are kind of quarantining like everybody else, and on the late night talk shows, Nancy Pelosi sitting there indulging in chocolate and having with her two $12,000 refrigerators in her kitchen in her San Francisco home. There was a Trump ad showing that, showing what an elitist, out of touch cunt she turned out to be. And here's the thing, like Jimmy Dore said, you got a man that shits on a golden toilet calling somebody who's worth over $100 million elitist. That says a lot, folks. I hope that Shahid Buttar unseats Nancy Pelosi, but folks, I'm Bernie Bro. I want you to subscribe. I want you to comment, good, bad, or indifferent. Peace.